if the same question will be asked to your athletes, I'm quite sure there will be answers like, it's trending, recovery is trending, right? Or most of them will be answering that, no, my strength and conditioning coach has forced me to do that, right? But our athletes go through tough schedule, you know. There's a lot of practice sessions, matches, meetings, their personal life commitments, and whatnot. And hence, their homeostasis is disturbed. If an athlete is able to balance between their internal and external changes, which is happening in their body, they are able to deliver their best performance. But if there is continuous imbalance of the changes which are happening externally or internally in the body, the homeostasis is disturbed, right? So before understanding recovery, it is very important for us as support staff, we should understand fatigue, right? You can take an analogy of a savings account. Your body is like a savings account. When you spend energy, you're basically making a withdrawal, right? You're spending energy, you're causing a little damage to your muscles. And what happens? After exercises, your energy goes a little bit lower, right? But that's the trick. When you're done with your exercises, your body starts to replenish. And nature is so great. You just don't replace what you have spent, your body adds a little bit of extra. And that's called supercompensation. So every time when you're doing exercises, you're making your muscles more resilient and more stronger. But what happens when you keep on going without taking the due care which is needed for your body to recuperate? You are reaching towards non-functional overreaching, right? Many, like how in previous presentations it was mentioned that it is many at times it is unintentional. Athletes do want to, there's a lot of peer pressure, performance pressure, competition pressure, and it's unintentional. Athletes don't know, so we are here to tell them, or we have to identify athletes before reaching to the stage called overtraining syndrome, where your athlete will have physical complaints like, continuous muscle soreness, low pain thresholds, and inflammation in their body. Your understanding of fatigue can only be garnered when your recovery is monitored properly. The best and most common method to monitor recovery is your resting heart rate, your heart rate variability, ventilation patterns, and load monitoring. We have all these aspects, but on top of all these, rate of perceived exertion is really very important. So we have, on a day-to-day basis, we have questionnaires where we ask the athlete to fill up their sleep hours, how was the sleep quality, when was how did they perceive their exertion, and all these things. And we, monitoring recovery can be considered like um, checking weather before planning a picnic, right? You cannot plan a picnic when it is going to rain. When your athlete is not ready, you cannot plan a session. So it's very important for us to monitor recovery very closely. The recovery pyramid here outlines all the strategies we use in high performance setting. It is built upon the foundation of sleep and downtime, followed by nutrition and hydration. And these three are, they do have the most potential strategies for recovery, followed by compression and active stretching, active recovery, massage. And there are a lot of other methods which have least evidence. As I said, sleep is the most prominent and efficient strategy for recovery, and unfortunately the most ignored one, right? Our athletes are, it's okay, yeah, party kar lenge, थोड़ी सी और थोड़े extended hours जग लेंगे, क्या फर्क पड़ता है? But that is the thing where athletes unknowingly, unintentionally ignore their recovery. Right? Uh, Sleep is mostly determined by two processes, that is sleep drive and wake drive. Um, Adenosine is a neurotransmitter which accumulates throughout the day, and it should be washed out when you're recovered. When you sleep, it should be washed out. And many of the studies suggest that accumulation of adenosine in later periods of your life can also lead to Alzheimer's. So it is very important for athlete to sleep well. Cortisol and melatonin have opposite relationship. So cortisol is your wake hormone, your stress hormone. Looking at your schedules, because of infrared rays and your blue screen, your cortisol levels are always high, and that is why we struggle to sleep. What we can do as support staff is to make them aware about the regular bedtime routines. Even when they are on their holidays, they should have they should have a same time every day. They should get to sleep and they should wake up. There should be no caffeine before 5 to 6 hours. There's research which says even 9 hours before your bedtime, consuming caffeine can be harmful, or it can hamper your sleep. So ideally 5 to 6 hours, there should be no caffeine. Your room temperature has to be cool and it should be dark and quiet. There are researches which suggest that taking a daytime nap of at least 30 minutes will be very beneficial for your athletes. Also, there are studies which suggest that sleep extension up to 10 hours is helpful. The next in the recovery pyramid was nutrition and hydration, which helps in muscle regeneration, glycogen restoration. It reduces your fatigue and physical immune health. But I would really suggest that, having a proper team and taking suggestions from your nutritionist, and take a proper individualized approach for each and every athlete is advisable. We have seen, like Shalini also mentioned during the presentation of REDS, that even a smallest energy deficit of 30 kilocalorie per kg free fat mass can lead to decreased thyroid function and insulin growth related factor, which can hamper with their menstrual cycle, their bone formation, their recovery. Over to you, Shalini.
Shalini will have to rush a bit. We have another 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
So we all know that what are the nutrition. We always talk about fats, proteins, and carbs. So I'll very quickly take you through. We know how much, what are carbs, proteins. Let's not get into it. What I just want to tell here is when, what, and how. This is where we all struggle in managing, right? So carbohydrates are something we're going to talk today about. Anything around 5 to 7 grams per kg of per body weight for moderate intensity training, anything within 1 hour of duration. Also, so these are the basic quantity that we are trying to inject or implement during their training session. So we have something with the moderate intensity, we have something with the high intensity, which is around 8 to 12 grams 4 to 5 hours prior, and also around low intensity, which is 3 to 5 grams. So let's see about protein. This is something I want to emphasize more on because we speak a lot about muscle mass, how to maintain the lean body mass, also how to limit the muscle loss. So anything around 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kg of body weight per day is advisable for athletes. Now we all know this is the quantity. Now let us know when to take it. How long can we prolong the ingestion of protein after any kind of an exercise? So ideally, anything within 15 minutes after your workout or a competition or a match is ideally to enhance protein synthesis. All right, now there is a lot of confusion. What do we take, plant-based or whey? So the only difference in these two is when you compare plant with whey protein, the content of leucine is higher in whey protein comparative to plant-based. All right, the rest and all we see, they enhances protein synthesis and promotes lean body mass. Also, the plant-based is lactose-free. So people usually, people who are lactate tolerant will usually prefer the plant-based, is what we're trying to say here. And then hydration, these are the symptoms. This is very commonly we see in athletes because of their daily symptoms, and this is something which we daily monitor. We take their wellness scores regarding the hydration. Also, these are the symptoms like, dry mouth, extreme thirst. Athlete doesn't drink water till the time the athlete feels thirsty. That's an indication, is what we say. The urine color and their body weight pre and post their training. So we'll talk something about even the ice bath. This is a very traditional way of recovery we've been talking, and everybody goes for an ice bath. So why are we doing this? What does an ice bath do? It basically decreases the body core temperature. It allows in reducing the swelling. It allows in reducing the nerve excitement. And then if you see there, the main point I want to cover here is strength adaptations is going down. So this is something we are not advisable to have an ice bath after any strength sessions. Rather, anything after you complete a high intensity cardio or probably a match day is ideally suitable to take an ice bath, but we can try avoiding doing it after any of the strength sessions. So this is something how we're gonna encourage athletes to acclimatize themselves during the heat conditions, and this is probably we see in India in a lot during these scenarios, especially when you play from the month of around March to April, and that's the peak tournaments most of the men and women cricketers will be playing. So how do we encounter this? We know everything which is written here. We have to improve sleep, hygiene, hydration. The main thing what we miss is something we have to first allow the athletes to get used to the climate. And how do we do that? We all practice in the same temperature. Probably we reach there 2-3 days prior. It is our duty to probably have those little extra sessions where we are allowing the athletes to work at that particular temperature, rather putting the athlete in their comfort temperatures. So basically it is you have to get the athlete used to the temperature prior to going to the competition. Compression garments is something which is taking a very boom nowadays. So what usually compression garments do is it allows in reducing the swelling. It allows in promoting lactate clearance. So what exactly we're speaking about this is when we do strength training, especially eccentric loading, correct? That is the when we are putting the muscle tension when it is lengthened. This is where the soreness is more in athletes, right? So that is what the researchers say, that it is more beneficial to reduce soreness. Also, it helps in muscle oscillation properties. Also, it allows in reducing pain. Also, it has a placebo effect for few athletes. So active recovery, I would prefer an ice bath or an active recovery. I will probably go with this slide because this is something which is more closer to the athlete's body metabolism, also the way the psychological and physiological processes happen. So anything which is like easy swimming or cycling, probably have a pool session, jogging, or a cross trainer, a basic 60 to 70%, 30 to 70% of intensity of VO2 max, which is very, very minimal load intensity. Probably an active recovery would probably go around the other modalities I say. So yeah, this is something which I think most SNCs actually focus on. The recovery is what we spoke is everything which we did later, but this is something which is during the sessions. So do we take any precautions about these rest periods we're talking here? So this is like immediate between successive efforts, like I have a strength session in the morning, and how much rest are we going to give for the athlete to attend a net session in the evening, in the afternoon? So we still see a lot of practices where there's a fielding going on, and then immediately we have we have time, let us put the athletes in strength session. We still have time, let her go and do bowling, or let him go and bat. So this is something which we have to definitely consider to avoid injuries also, or in fact put the athlete to prone for any kind of injuries. Short term is between successive sets. So if we are doing anything which is hypertrophy, and which if we are walking around anything 70% of the intensities, probably we can go to a rest of around 60 seconds or something. But if we are doing kind of a power training or a plyometrics, then the rest periods has to be at around 90 to 2 minutes. So this is what small things we sometimes miss taking care of, but then it all starts from here. So yeah, as we said, we've been only talking about recovery is the main key, which will allow us to be prepared to perform well, and then that's how the performance is enhanced, especially, and we can avoid any kind of injuries. So you want to sum up?
So the main takeaways from our presentation is your sleep intervention before games enhances recovery and performance. These can be achieved with sleep extensions, your dawn simulators. Avoid using the snooze button. We most of us we do that, but it is good to avoid using the snooze button. Post exercise recovery, as Shalini mentioned, the active recovery is really helpful in improving the sleep also. Also, one good point is how close to the bedtime we should avoid consuming coffee is. The research actually says 9 to somewhere around 8.5 hours, that is somewhere around 9 hours. And when people consumed coffee beyond that, their sleep quality was reduced to 7%. The scientifically backed supplements which helped in sleep was tryptophan, glycine, and magnesium glycinate. And of course, the power of napping. So we should promote athletes to have at least 30 minutes of power nap. Thank you.